playing multiple different ways, maybe playing a little bit more passively in his very, very first set in Swiss rounds against Arand, and then playing much more aggressively in Top Cut. But we are kicking game number 1 off with Alex showing us the Palkia and the Ndidi, and Chongjun with his trusty Groudon and Charizard.
That is such a terrifying lead to start this match off with. At least Alex has the Ndidi on the field to redirect the attacks coming out from these two Pokemon. It's possible that Groudon goes for a Precipice Blades, which would deal damage to both of these Pokemon in this turn 1, but at least he can't double into the Palkia, which would most certainly be a knockout, possibly even if the Palkia decides to go for the Dynamax turn 1. Looking at Alex's board position, I feel like he's almost required to go for that Dynamax, because if you fall behind on damage, you're really going to struggle to keep up with the Zacian as well, who was just revealed on Chongjun's side of the field. But no more switches. Let's see if there's a Dynamax involved.
Well, there appears to be at least one hitting the field right now, and we are going to see that Zacian next to that Gigantamax Charizard, and this is certainly a turn 1 that is no surprise to us at this point. Chongjun very open to going for a bit more of an offensive pressure to kick things off for a game, but Alex is going to match that with a Dynamax of his own, and you called it, Gabby. This is definitely a place where Alex wants to find himself, which is going to be able to match the damage output that we are going to see from Chongjun.
It's an interesting switch as well to see that Zacian on the field instead of something like a Gastrodon. I would feel that if Chongjun was expecting a water-type attack, you would switch in the Gastrodon, but instead it's the Zacian. So we'll see what the move is going to be.
Well, it's going to be G-Max Wildfire into the Ndidi, thanks to the help from the sun that Groudon set before it switched out. But it is a Focus Sash that allows this Ndidi to hang on for at least the full of this turn. But, oh my gosh, the Max Wormwind does devastating damage, and Charizard gets knocked out in one hit. And Zacian's attack does go back to neutral.
A correct prediction, at least partially, from Chongjun, recognizing that it wasn't going to be Max Geyser coming out from this Palkia. It was the Max Wormwind. Unfortunately, Zacian was in the wrong slot. Charizard was left on the field to take that damage, and while it's nice that the G-Max Wildfire is in play and Alex's Pokemon will be taking chip damage between every single turn, that Charizard wanted to stick around for a lot longer, to take advantage of solar power, to take advantage of the sun boost as well for those fire-type attacks. An unfortunate trade for Chongjun, but Alex just getting one of those offensive Pokemon off the field. Now that Groudon is back out on the field, Alex could try and go for a Max Geyser here, but we don't know what Chongjun's last Pokemon is, and if we see another switch, possibly that Groudon or that Gastrodon making an appearance, Chongjun can easily find that momentum back.
Yeah, you can see that Alex also, to replace that Ndidi, has brought in the Porygon 2, but Zacian goes for Play Rough. It does connect, dealing devastating damage to this Palkia, but we are also going to see it fire back with a Max Quick into the Zacian, and that also gets knocked out. Alex quickly taking a Pokemon advantage.
And Palkia really doing a great job of the Dynamax turns 2 knockouts already. It's really only that Groudon left to deal big damage.
Oh, that is going to be a knockout onto the Palkia that was Precipice Blades connect. And this means we are down to a 2v2 situation very quickly, but foul play coming out from the Porygon. Going to be doing a decent chunk of damage there, depending on what is in the back. That could be quick cleanup for Alex.
I'm still expecting to see that Gastrodon make an appearance for Chongjun. I think that's just something you have to anticipate, but instead it's the Incineroar, so that's great information for Alex in a possible game 2. Just knowing that that last Pokemon is going to have Intimidate, is going to have Fake Out, and really forces this Zacian reveal on Alex's side of the field to go for Protect in this first turn. You know, Fake Out plus another Precipice Blades from that Groudon would be easily enough to knock out that Zacian. I think the big question that I have this turn is how much damage will Foul Play do to Groudon this turn, and will it be enough to ensure a knockout in the subsequent turn? I don't know if it's safe to attack with Zacian at this point. Zacian could take big damage from Precipice Blades, could get knocked out by a Flare Blitz boosted by the Sun on this Incineroar. So even though Alex has done a great job of bringing it down to the last 2 Pokemon, the Zacian still is really going to struggle.
It might, but we're going to see the Behemoth Blade come out first, connecting into the Groudon. It's not going to be enough to remove it from the field, which leaves that Zacian super vulnerable. Precipice Blade is going to be able to hit both targets. Zacian gets taken super, super low. And the Flare Blitz now as a follow-up to ensure that the Porygon 2 is going to get knocked out here. And this puts Chongjun in a fantastic position to close out this game.
Really great prioritization on the targets there as well from Chongjun. You know, even though Zacian's able to hold on with 3 HP with that G-Max Wildfire damage, the Porygon 2 was the bigger risk. It can get recover. You know, we saw that foul play would have approximately been a 3 to 4 hit knockout on that Groudon. Just getting it off the field means that your opponent can't really play the slow game much anymore. And for going fake out in favor of getting that damage for the knockout on Porygon 2 was, I think, the best call that Chongjun could have made. Even if the Zacian attacked, you know, Chongjun had enough confidence to know that after the Intimidate, a neutral Behemoth Blade would fail to pick up the knockout on that Groudon. And you really did need those 2 hits to connect with the Porygon 2 to secure that knockout. So now that Porygon 2 is gone, Zacian, really, you could even just protect this turn. You don't really have access to that with these 2 Pokemon. So maybe you just let the turn play out as it is and get ready for game 2.
Yeah, I think you absolutely let the turn play out. Zacian is going to go down to those G-Max Wildfire damage at the end of the turn. And if you're Alex, I think you just prepare yourself for that next game and use as much time as possible that is afforded to you in game to do so.
Exactly. I mean, we saw another move,
But we are jumping into game number 2, and Alex is going to lead the exact same leads as game number 1, and we are seeing a repeat of those leads for both players.
A repeat in Pokemon, but the big question is, will it be a repeat in moves? I loved the Max Wormwind from that Palkia on turn 1 from Alex because it did drop the attack of the Pokemon on the field. And hypothetically, if the Groudon does stay in this time, having that attack drop would mean that the Indeedee might not be brought down to Focus Sash, might have the opportunity to stick around a little bit longer. But that all being said, I think if you're Chongjun, you still go for the Gigantamax on the Charizard. You still want to get that big damage down onto the field, but it's already a mix-up, and we're seeing the Zacian make an early appearance in this game.
Well, I mean, based off of what happened in game number 1, this is pretty safe. And in fact, we're going to see a double switch here coming in from Chongjun. That Gastrodon also making an appearance here. And it's just a rotating door of Pokemon. Everybody getting switched in and out here as Incineroar also makes an appearance. That Intimidate going to bring that Zacian back to neutral. And based on what happened in that game number 1, I think this covers a lot of Chongjun's options, whether it is going to be the Max Wormwind into the Charizard slot there. Zacian's going to be able to take that, absolutely no problem, no damage whatsoever. And then you also have the opportunity to negate a Max Geyser. That's huge.
Yeah, the only option that would allow Palkia to do damage at this point, this turn, would be a Max Quake. But that's just not a read you make when staring down a Charizard and a Groudon.
I mean, this is such a tough position for Alex to be in because Chongjun in that game number 1 didn't even bring the Gastrodon. So to see it make an appearance here was a very, very good adjustment from Chongjun to make sure that this Palkia didn't have full value from its Dynamax turns.
Exactly. And admittedly, the Gastrodon could be knocked out here by a couple of Max Quakes, but by the time Palkia has the opportunity to land those attacks, Zacian should be able to pick up the KO with a play rough or 2. So Gastrodon in a relatively safe position could start going for its own attacks, or honestly could just put enough pressure down onto the board with Yawn, forcing Alex to make a decision. Do you want your Palkia, who is your major damage dealer, to go to sleep? But it looks like we're seeing something completely different as another adjustment. It's going to be the Gastrodon Dynamaxing this time around.
Yeah, it is. I mean, why not? You have the special attack boost given over by the Max Geyser, and so this is a great opportunity for you to be able to deal damage. A play rough into the Palkia brings it below half HP, and here comes the Max Wormwind. It has to go into that Gastrodon slot, and it is going to do about half as well, but that Gastrodon is still very, very healthy and should be able to fire off another attack here.
Exactly, and the question I have is if that attack is a Max Quake, will that be enough to knock out the Palkia after the special attack boost?
We're about to find out the answer to that question as Gastrodon goes for the Max Quake, but it's going to be into the Incineroar, and it will survive with 22 HP.
I like the targeting there. You know, Incineroar is still a bit of a threat, especially to that Zacian. You know, a Flare Blitz, the sun is still up on the field right now, would deal a ton of damage to it and possibly knock it out outright. Since Chongjun targeted the Incineroar that last turn, Palkia and Incineroar are now within knockout range for an attack from the Gastrodon or the Zacian this turn. It's a very safe way to ensure that not only are you getting those special defense boosts to help take less damage from the Palkia, you can ensure that this turn you go for that double knockout, and then it's just Indeedee and whatever Alex's last Pokemon is. If it is hypothetically the Zacian like we saw in Game 1, Dynamax and Gastrodon also gives you the opportunity to just knock that out with a Max Quake, and it's possible that Gastrodon, even with taking damage, is still bulky enough to take an attack from it.
I like this adjustment. Chongjun going to bring the Zacian back, and Alex also doing the same with drawing that Incineroar, so we will see instead that Charizard as well as the Indeedee now. Max Guard coming out from the Palkia, but the Max Quake is going to target into that Indeedee slot there. Incineroar should have been on the receiving end of that one, but now Indeedee in the situation, even if it decides to go for something like a Follow Me or a Helping Hand, it gets one turn of utility here.
Exactly, and that one turn of utility, I mean, it could make all the difference. I think that Alex is in an interesting position to capitalize on a nice Helping Hand Spatial Rend or Helping Hand Earth Power here to try and knock out the Charizard or the Gastrodon. But whatever Pokemon Alex targets, I think all Chongjun has to do is target the Palkia to secure the knockout. Indeedee is not a damage-dealing Pokemon. The best thing it can bring to the board at this point in time is a Follow Me or a Helping Hand. I mean, it's possible that it has a Psychic-type move to attack with. I think Expanding Force is usually the move of choice for these Indeedee at this point in time, but I just don't think that's going to do enough damage, especially with the special defense boost already active on Chongjun's side of the field.
Well, we're going to see a Protect anyway, just in case, from both the Charizard and the Indeedee, as we will have Palkia go for the Spatial Rend right into the Protect there. Gastrodon now gets a chance to move, and for its final turn of Dynamax, it will be going for a Max Quake into the Palkia to clean it up. And now Alex has two Pokemon remaining, that Indeedee and that Incineroar.
That is...
Or three, sorry. I can't count.
It's a tough spot to be in, though. I mean, again, assuming that last Pokemon is a Zacian, you can't really send in the Incineroar at this board position. The Gastrodon isn't going to care that Incineroar is on the field and be able to easily secure that knockout with another ground-type attack. If you send in your Zacian, you know, you have to trust that Behemoth Blade is going to do enough damage. It's possible that Chongjun also could just switch in the Groudon or the Zacian of his own at this point, except the fact that, yeah, I am going to be taking a little bit of damage on this switch, but as long as I can secure a knockout against my opponent's Zacian, somehow I can take care of the Incineroar, I can take care of the Indeedee, and I can progress into the finals of this tournament. Zacian is a fantastic restricted Pokemon pick, but in this situation, there is so much stacked against it. I'm pretty sure every single Pokemon left on Chongjun's side of the field can hit it for super effective damage at this point.
Well, Behemoth Blade into the Charizard brings it down so low, but it's not quite enough to knock it out. And now Charizard can go for the revenge with the Blast Burn, one hit knocking out the Zacian, and now Alex is down to two final Pokemon.
I think the Indeedee did go for an attack this turn, which is great, but I think unfortunately Alex would have had to have that Blast Burn miss in order to still be in the game. Gastrodon still has the special attack boost. Indeedee bulky enough to hang on for one more turn, but all Chongjun has to do to move on into finals is send in the Groudon or the Zacian. That's it. They're two of the most powerful Pokemon on his team, and against almost knocked out Indeedee and an Incineroar, it must be a really nice position to be in.
Yeah, Chongjun should be able to take this last couple of turns You know, Alex does get the Intimidate drop onto the Zacian, so it is something going their way. Maybe if they decide to go for a play rough, it misses, but this is looking very rough for Alex.
I think even if Alex tried to go for the knockout onto Zacian with Flare Blitz, Sun's not on the field anymore, but even if it was, the recoil damage from the Flare Blitz would be enough to knock out that Incineroar. These Pokemon are down to their last percentage points of health, and Chongjun just taking a turn, knowing that victory is becoming more and more certain, to scout out what Alex is going to do this turn. So next turn he can respond to that and play the safest way through this endgame.
Yeah. What a good match, though.
It is.
Such expert play from both of these players as we come down to the final moments. Alex using Follow Me here, so the Sacred Sword connects there. And Didi does get knocked out. Let's see how the Incineroar is going to respond, and it is going to be that Flare Blitz. Goes into the Zacian. Zacian gets low, but the Incineroar does get lower. Burn coming a little bit too late as Incineroar knocks itself out from recoil. And Chongjun takes our second top 4 match to move on to the grand finals.
It just goes to show you how powerful Groudon and Charizard are together right now in a matchup where they were at a